The night was eerily quiet on the barren moon of Zither 7, where Earth's last outpost stood as a lonely sentinel against the vast unknown. Corporal Ethan Drake leaned against the cold metal railing of the observation deck, his breath forming faint clouds in the freezing air. He had been stationed here for 6 months now, and every day felt like an eternity. The stars shimmered above him, indifferent to his solitude, but tonight something felt different. A soft hum filled the air, barely noticeable at first, growing louder with each passing second. Ethan turned toward the horizon just in time to see a streak of light descend from the heavens. It wasn't one of their ships. It moved too gracefully, too purposefully. Before he could raise the alarm, the object landed silently in the distance, kicking up no dust, leaving no trace of impact. His pulse quickened as curiosity overpowered caution. Gripping his rifle tightly, Ethan stepped off the platform and began walking toward the mysterious landing site. As he approached, the ground beneath his boots seemed to shimmer faintly, pulsating with an energy that made his skin tingle. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the glowing haze. She was tall, taller than any human woman he'd ever seen. Her skin a radiant shade of silver blue that caught the dim starlight like liquid metal. Her eyes glowed faintly, twin orbs of amber that pierced through the darkness. She wore a flowing gown that seemed woven from stardust itself, shifting colors with every movement. This was no ordinary visitor. This was someone or something otherworldly. Ethan froze, his weapon raised half-heartedly. "Who or what are you?" he stammered, his voice trembling despite his best efforts to sound brave. The alien queen tilted her head slightly, studying him with an expression that was both amused and curious. When she spoke, her voice resonated like music, rich and melodic, yet commanding. "I am Queen Saraphina of the Velari," she announced, her words carrying a weight that demanded respect. "And you, mortal soldier, stand before me unafraid." Her presence was overwhelming, and Ethan found himself struggling to form coherent thoughts. But then, almost instinctively, his sense of humor kicked in. "Unafraid? Ma'am, I'm terrified," he replied with a nervous chuckle. "But hey, if you're here to conquer us, can we at least negotiate over coffee? I've got some instant packets in my bunk." To his surprise, Seraphina's lips curved into a smile, revealing teeth that sparkled like tiny diamonds. "You humans are peculiar creatures," she said, stepping closer. "Your courage is masked by jests, your fear hidden behind laughter. Tell me, soldier, what do you truly desire?" Ethan blinked, caught off guard by the question. For a moment, he considered giving a serious answer. Peace, maybe, or freedom, but the absurdity of the situation bubbled back up. With a smirk, he shrugged and said, "You." It was meant as a joke, a flippant remark born out of nerves and disbelief. But the moment the words left his lips, the atmosphere shifted. Seraphina's smile faltered, replaced by an intensity that sent shivers down Ethan's spine. She took another step forward, her gaze locking onto his with an unyielding focus. "You wish for me?" she asked, her tone low and deliberate. There was no mistaking it now. She had taken his words literally. Ethan's mind raced as panic set in. No, I mean wait, that came out wrong," he sputtered, waving his hands defensively. "It was just a joke, He trailed off, realizing how futile his attempts were. How do you explain sarcasm to an alien queen who looks at you like you're the most fascinating thing in the universe? Seraphina didn't seem bothered by his stuttering denial. Instead, she reached out, her fingers brushing lightly against his cheek. The touch was electric, sending a jolt through his body that left him speechless. "Very well," she declared, her voice ringing with finality. "If it is me you desire, then so be it. I shall remain by your side until such time as you prove otherwise." Before Ethan could protest further, a blinding flash enveloped them both. When the light faded, they were no longer on the desolate surface of Zither 7. They stood instead in what appeared to be a grand chamber aboard a massive spacecraft, its walls adorned with intricate patterns that pulsed gently with inner light. Around them, Velari servants moved silently, their forms ethereal and graceful. "Welcome to my realm," Seraphina said, gesturing to the opulent surroundings. "Here, you will learn what it means to have everything, and nothing, you ever wanted." Ethan opened his mouth to argue, to demand answers, but the sheer surrealism of the situation left him dumbfounded. As the reality of his predicament sank in, one thought echoed loudly in his mind. What have I gotten myself into? Life aboard Saraphina's ship was unlike anything Ethan had ever experienced. The corridors shimmered with bioluminescent hues, and the air carried a faint scent of something floral yet metallic. Every corner of the vessel exuded elegance, but Ethan couldn't shake the feeling of being a fish out of water. Despite the grandeur, he missed the simplicity of his old life, the clunky machinery of the outpost, the camaraderie with fellow soldiers, even the taste of stale ration bars. Queen Saraphina, however, seemed determined to make him feel at home, or at least her version of it. She introduced him to the Velari court, a gathering of beings whose appearances ranged from humanoid to utterly alien. Some floated, others glided, and a few communicated through melodic tones rather than words. Ethan struggled to keep up with their customs, often nodding awkwardly when he wasn't sure how to respond. One particularly memorable incident involved him accidentally accepting an invitation to a ceremonial dance, only to find himself surrounded by floating jellyfish-like creatures performing synchronized pirouettes. Despite the initial culture shock, there were moments of genuine connection. Saraphina herself proved to be more than just a regal enigma. Beneath her commanding presence lay a sharp wit and a playful streak that caught Ethan off guard. During one meal, where food materialized as glowing orbs of flavor, he cracked a joke about how Earth's fast food chains would go bankrupt if they served meals this way. To his delight, Saraphina laughed, her musical voice filling the room. It was the first time he saw her let her guard down, and it softened his perception of her. But not all interactions were light-hearted. Ethan soon realized that Saraphina's decision to stay by his side had consequences beyond mere companionship. The Velari court watched him closely, their glowing eyes filled with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. Whispers followed him wherever he went, and he overheard snippets of conversations questioning why their queen would choose a mere human as her companion. Some dismissed him as a fleeting fascination. Others saw him as a threat to their queen's authority. One evening, during a lavish banquet held in honor of diplomatic visitors from another galaxy, Ethan found himself cornered by Lord Xyler, a towering Velari noble with crystalline skin and eyes that burned like molten gold. Xyler regarded him with thinly veiled disdain. "Tell me, human," he sneered, his voice dripping with condescension. "What makes you worthy of our queen's attention? Are you some great warrior, a brilliant strategist, or simply a fool who stumbled into fortune?" Ethan clenched his fists, fighting the urge to snap back. Instead, he forced a grin and replied, "Well, I did manage to charm your queen with my sparkling personality. That's gotta count for something, right?" His quip earned a ripple of laughter from nearby guests, though Xyler's scowl deepened. Saraphina intervened before things could escalate, sweeping in with the grace of a queen unbothered by petty squabbles. "Lord Xyler," she said coolly, her voice cutting through the tension, "you would do well to remember that worth is not measured by titles or power alone." She placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder, her touch firm yet reassuring. "Let us focus on matters of greater importance." Though she deflected the confrontation, Ethan couldn't ignore the underlying friction. He began to understand that his presence wasn't just a personal arrangement. It was political. By choosing him, Saraphina had disrupted the delicate balance of Velari society, challenging centuries-old traditions and expectations. And while she seemed unfazed by the backlash, Ethan couldn't help but feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. Amidst the challenges, small victories kept him grounded. He discovered that the Velari valued storytelling above all else, and his tales of Earth, from childhood adventures to war stories, captivated audiences eager for glimpses of humanity. In return, they shared their own histories, weaving narratives of cosmic battles and celestial wonders that left Ethan awestruck. These exchanges fostered a mutual respect, bridging the gap between species and easing some of the hostility directed at him. Still, moments of doubt lingered. Late at night, when the ship's hum lulled into silence, Ethan would sit by the observation window, staring out at the endless expanse of stars. He wondered if he'd made a mistake, a colossal, irreversible error that had trapped him in a life he never asked for. Yet, looking at Saraphina, who often joined him in those quiet hours, he couldn't deny the strange pull she had on him. She was infuriating, unpredictable, and undeniably captivating. Whether it was fate or folly, their bond was undeniable. As days turned into weeks, Ethan's role as Saraphina's chosen companion became increasingly complicated. While he enjoyed moments of levity and camaraderie, the stakes grew higher with each passing day. Little did he know, his unwitting declaration of desire was about to thrust him into a conflict far greater than himself. one that would test his courage, challenge his loyalties, and force him to confront the true meaning of sacrifice. The peace aboard Saraphina's ship was shattered without warning. An urgent alarm blared through the corridors, its piercing wail reverberating like a scream. Ethan bolted upright from his bed, disoriented and groggy, as crimson lights bathed the room in an ominous glow. Before he could process what was happening, the door slid open, and Saraphina stormed in, her usual composure replaced by steely determination. "We are under attack," she announced tersely, already striding toward the command center. "Come with me." Ethan scrambled after her, his heart pounding. The once elegant hallways were now chaotic, filled with Velari warriors rushing to their posts. The air crackled with tension, and the hum of the ship's engines grew louder, vibrating through the floor. As they entered the command center, a holographic display dominated the room, showing a fleet of sleek, menacing ships closing in on their position. Their designs were unfamiliar, jagged and predatory, bristling with weapons. "What is this?" Ethan demanded, gripping the edge of the console for support. "Who's attacking us?" "The Krylos," Saraphina spat, her voice laced with venom. "A rogue faction that seeks to overthrow my rule and seize control of the Velari Empire. They view your presence here as a weakness, an opportunity to strike." Ethan's stomach churned. He had unwittingly become a liability, a pawn in a galactic power struggle he barely understood. But there was no time for self-recrimination. The first wave of enemy fighters breached the ship's defenses, unleashing a barrage of plasma fire that rocked the vessel. Lights flickered, and alarms screamed as the crew scrambled to counter the assault. Saraphina turned to Ethan, her glowing eyes blazing with resolve. "You must fight alongside me," she commanded. "Your skills may tip the balance in our favor." "Are you serious?" Ethan exclaimed, incredulous. "I'm just a soldier, not some intergalactic hero." "And yet," she countered, placing a hand on his shoulder, "you have proven yourself resourceful and brave. Trust me, Ethan. Together we can prevail." With little choice but to comply, Ethan found himself armed with a sleek Velari weapon, a compact rifle that hummed with alien energy. Saraphina led him to a tactical station near the front lines, where they coordinated with other warriors to repel the invaders. The battle unfolded in a blur of chaos and adrenaline. Enemy drones swarmed the corridors, their mechanical limbs slicing through walls and targeting anything that moved. Ethan fired blindly at first, his shots wild and ineffective, but Saraphina guided him patiently, teaching him how to aim and adapt to the fluid combat style of the Velari. At one point, a massive explosion shook the ship, sending debris flying. Ethan dove behind a console, narrowly avoiding a shard of shrapnel. When he looked up, he saw Saraphina engaged in close combat with a Krylos warrior twice her size. Her movements were fluid and precise, her blade-like appendages gleaming as she parried and struck with deadly accuracy. Despite her prowess, the enemy's sheer numbers began to overwhelm her. Without thinking, Ethan charged forward, firing a concentrated burst of energy that stunned the Krylos long enough for Saraphina to deliver the finishing blow. Their eyes met briefly, and for the first time, Ethan saw gratitude in her gaze. "Well done," she said simply, before turning back to the fray. The fighting raged on, testing Ethan's limits. He discovered reserves of strength and resilience he never knew he possessed. At one critical juncture, he hacked into an enemy drone system using a makeshift interface provided by a Velari engineer, redirecting its attacks against the Krylos forces. The maneuver bought them precious time, allowing Saraphina's fleet to regroup and launch a counteroffensive. Yet, even as the tide began to turn, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that something darker lurked beneath the surface. During a brief lull in the battle, he overheard fragments of a transmission intercepted by the Velari communications team. The Krylos leader, a shadowy figure known only as Malachar, taunted Saraphina directly. "You cling to this human like a relic of the past," Malachar's voice snarled, distorted but chilling. "But your affection for him will be your undoing. Surrender now or face annihilation." Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. The words struck a nerve, forcing him to confront the truth. His presence endangered not only himself but everyone aboard the ship. For all his newfound bravery, he couldn't escape the gnawing guilt that whispered he might be more trouble than he was worth. When the battle finally subsided, the ship was battered but intact. The Krylos fleet retreated, leaving behind a trail of destruction and unanswered questions. As repairs began, Ethan retreated to a quiet corner of the ship, his mind racing. Saraphina joined him moments later, her expression unreadable. "You fought valiantly today," she said softly. "But I sense your doubts. Speak freely, Ethan. What troubles you?" He hesitated, weighing his words carefully. "I don't belong here," he admitted at last. "This war isn't mine to fight. Every moment I stay, I put you and your people in danger." Seraphina's eyes softened, and she placed a hand over his. "You underestimate yourself," she murmured. "You have become more than just a companion, Ethan. You are a symbol, a reminder that unity transcends species and borders. If you leave now, you abandon not only me but the hope we share." Her words stirred something deep within him, but the uncertainty remained. The Krylos weren't finished, and neither was the turmoil brewing inside Ethan. As the ship limped towards safety, the question lingered. Could he rise to meet the challenges ahead, or would the weight of his choices crush him entirely? In the aftermath of the battle, Ethan found himself grappling with emotions he hadn't anticipated. The adrenaline rush had faded, leaving behind a profound exhaustion. Not just physical, but emotional. He sat alone in his quarters, staring blankly at the wall as memories of the fight replayed in his mind. Each image was sharper than the last. Seraphina's determined face as she wielded her blade, the deafening roar of explosions, the eerie silence that followed. Most haunting of all was Malachar's taunt, echoing like a prophecy he couldn't escape. Then there was Saraphina herself. Her unwavering faith in him felt like both a gift and a burden. She believed in him more than he believed in himself, and that unnerved him. Was she blinded by affection, or did she truly see something in him that others, including himself, had missed? The thought weighed heavily on his chest, mingling with the guilt of knowing he'd brought danger upon her people. Every laugh they shared, every tender glance she gave him, carried the shadow of consequence now. Ethan wasn't used to vulnerability. On Earth, he'd built walls around himself, honed by years of military discipline and loss. Emotions were distractions, weaknesses to be buried. But here, among the stars, those walls crumbled piece by piece. Seraphina's presence forced him to confront feelings he'd long suppressed. Loneliness, longing, even love. Love? The word startled him. He wasn't ready to name it, let alone accept it. Yet, the ache in his heart whenever she walked away told him otherwise. Saraphina, for her part, bore the scars of leadership. She rarely spoke of her struggles, but Ethan noticed the subtle changes in her demeanor. Her laughter came less frequently, her smiles tinged with weariness. Late at night, when the ship drifted quietly through space, she would join him at the observation window, her gaze fixed on distant constellations. Once, he dared to ask what she saw when she looked at the stars. "Hope," she replied softly, "and fear. The universe is vast, Ethan, full of beauty and peril. To lead is to walk a fragile line between the two." Her words lingered with him, offering a glimpse into the immense pressure she carried. She wasn't just fighting for her throne. She was fighting for her people, for their future. And somehow, he had become entangled in that destiny. It terrified him. What if he failed her? What if his presence only hastened the downfall she feared? Their bond deepened in unexpected ways during these quiet moments. They began sharing stories again, delving deeper into their lives before they met. Saraphina recounted tales of her ascension to the throne, the sacrifices she'd made to unite the fractured Velari clans. Ethan, in turn, spoke of his childhood on Earth, of summers spent chasing fireflies and winters huddled around a fireplace with his family. He told her about the day he enlisted, driven by a need to protect those he loved, only to lose them anyway when tragedy struck. Through these exchanges, they found solace in each other's vulnerabilities. Saraphina confessed her doubts about whether she was strong enough to lead her people through the looming storm. Ethan admitted his fear of being inadequate, of letting her down. In those moments, they weren't queen and soldier. They were simply two souls navigating the complexities of existence together. But intimacy brought its own challenges. The closer they grew, the more acutely Ethan felt the chasm between their worlds. He belonged to Earth, to humanity, to a life he could scarcely remember. Seraphina belonged to the stars, to a legacy older than time itself. How could they bridge such a divide? More importantly, should they try? The questions haunted him, gnawing at the edges of his resolve. One evening, as they stood side by side watching the cosmos unfold before them, Seraphina turned to him with an expression he couldn't decipher. "Do you regret coming here?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan hesitated, searching for the right words. "No," he said finally, meeting her gaze. "But I wonder if staying is the right thing for either of us." She nodded slowly, as if she'd expected his answer. "Perhaps the path forward is unclear because it requires both of us to change, to grow, to risk everything." Her words resonated deeply, stirring a mixture of hope and dread within him. Change was inevitable, but growth came at a cost. Risking everything meant embracing the unknown, trusting in possibilities that might never come to fruition. Yet, as he looked into Saraphina's luminous eyes, he realized something. He wasn't afraid of the risks. He was afraid of losing her. The realization hit him like a supernova, bright and consuming. Whatever lay ahead, whether triumph or tragedy, he knew one thing for certain. He couldn't walk away. Not yet. Not until he'd faced the truth of what they meant to each other. The decision to stay wasn't easy, but Ethan knew deep down that leaving now would be a betrayal. Not just of Saraphina, but of himself. As the ship limped toward a hidden Velari outpost for repairs, he resolved to see this through, no matter the cost. Yet, the weight of his choice bore down on him with every passing moment. He trained harder, pushing his body to adapt to the alien technology and combat styles. He spent hours poring over tactical maps, learning everything he could about the Krylos and their leader, Malachar. And in quieter moments, he found himself watching Saraphina, trying to understand the depth of her strength and the fragility she hid beneath it. One evening, as they prepared for the next phase of their journey, Saraphina summoned him to a private chamber aboard the ship. The room was unlike any other. Its walls shimmered with holographic projections of star systems, constellations, and ancient Velari symbols. At its center stood an ornate pedestal, glowing faintly with an inner light. She gestured for him to approach, her expression unreadable. "This is the Nexus," she explained, her voice tinged with reverence. "A sacred artifact that has guided my ancestors for millennia. It holds the wisdom of our people, the essence of who we are." Ethan frowned, unsure why she had brought him here. "What does this have to do with me?" he asked cautiously. Saraphina hesitated, her gaze dropping to the floor before meeting his again. "I need you to understand what's at stake. If the Krylos succeed in overthrowing me, they will destroy not only the Velari but also the balance of power across this quadrant of the galaxy. Your Earth would eventually fall into their grasp." Her words sent a chill through him. "But I'm just one man," he protested. "How can I possibly make a difference?" "You already have," she countered, stepping closer. "Your presence challenges everything the Krylos stand for: division, conquest, fear. They see you as a weakness because they cannot comprehend unity. But together, we can turn that perceived flaw into our greatest strength." Before he could respond, she activated the Nexus. A surge of energy enveloped them, pulling Ethan into a vision unlike anything he'd ever experienced. He saw flashes of the past, the rise of the Velari Empire, the wars that forged alliances among disparate species, the sacrifices made to preserve peace. Then the images shifted, showing glimpses of the future. Worlds burning under the Krylos tyranny, humanity enslaved, Saraphina defeated and broken. Finally, the vision settled on a single image, a battlefield where he stood alongside Saraphina, facing Malachar. The outcome was unclear, shrouded in mist, but the message was clear. The choices they made now would shape the fate of countless lives. When the vision ended, Ethan staggered back, overwhelmed. That was real?" he stammered. "As real as your determination must be," Saraphina replied gently. "The Nexus shows possibilities, not certainties. What happens next depends on us." For the first time, Ethan felt the true enormity of his role. It wasn't just about surviving or protecting Saraphina, it was about becoming something greater than himself. Something worthy of the trust she placed in him. As the days passed, preparations intensified. The Velari crew worked tirelessly to fortify the ship and gather intelligence on the Krylos fleet. Ethan threw himself into training, determined to prove he could hold his own against the enemy. Under Saraphina's guidance, he mastered new techniques, blending human ingenuity with Velari precision. His progress earned grudging respect from some of the warriors, though others still regarded him with suspicion. Meanwhile, tensions between Saraphina and her advisors grew palpable. Many questioned her reliance on a human, arguing that tradition demanded a more conventional approach to leadership. Lord Xyler, in particular, became increasingly vocal in his opposition, challenging her decisions at every turn. One heated debate left Ethan seething with anger after overhearing Xyler accuse Saraphina of jeopardizing the Velari legacy for the sake of a fleeting infatuation. Furious, Ethan confronted Xyler later that day. "You don't get to talk about her like that," he snapped, his fists clenched. She's risking everything to protect your people, and all you do is criticize her. Xyler sneered, towering over him. And you presume to lecture me, mortal? You know nothing of our ways, our struggles. Your very existence undermines her authority. Maybe? Ethan shot back, refusing to back down. But I'm here, aren't I? Fighting for her, for all of you. Can you say the same? Their argument drew a crowd, and Saraphina arrived just in time to intervene. Her voice cut through the tension like a blade. Enough, she commanded, her eyes blazing. Lord Xyler, your concerns are noted, but so are your insubordinations. Ethan, while your loyalty is commendable, remember your place. Both men fell silent, chastened by her words. As she dismissed the gathering, Saraphina pulled Ethan aside. You must learn patience, she admonished softly. Passion is a weapon, but wielded recklessly, it becomes a liability. I'm sorry, he muttered, shamefaced. I hate seeing them doubt you. And I appreciate your defense, she said, placing a hand on his arm. But leadership requires sacrifice, even of pride. Remember that. The final leg of their journey took them to the edge of a nebula, where the Velari planned to stage a counterattack against the Krylos. The swirling clouds of gas and dust provided cover, but also posed navigational hazards. As they approached, Ethan felt the familiar knot of anxiety tighten in his chest. This was it, the moment they'd been preparing for. Saraphina gathered her council, including Ethan, in the war room. Holographic displays showed the positions of both fleets, along with potential strategies. The plan was risky. A direct assault on the Krylos flagship, aiming to capture or neutralize Malachar. Success depended on speed, coordination, and a healthy dose of luck. We strike at dawn, Saraphina announced, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. May the stars guide us. That night, Ethan lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Sleep eluded him as his mind raced with scenarios, doubts, and fears. Eventually, he rose and wandered the ship, seeking solace in movement. He found himself outside Saraphina's quarters, hesitating before knocking softly. She answered almost immediately, clad in a flowing robe that shimmered like moonlight. Couldn't sleep? She asked, a hint of amusement in her tone. Not really, he admitted, stepping inside. Too much on my mind. She nodded sympathetically. Me too. Sometimes, the quiet moments are the hardest. They sat together in silence for a while, the hum of the ship providing a comforting backdrop. Finally, Ethan spoke. What if we lose tomorrow? Saraphina sighed, her gaze distant. Then we fight until there's nothing left to give. But failure is not an option, not when so much depends on us. He looked at her, marveling at her resilience. You're incredible, you know that? A small smile tugged at her lips. And you are braver than you realize. Whatever happens, Ethan, I'm glad you're here. Her words filled him with a mixture of warmth and resolve. For the first time since this journey began, he felt truly ready. Not because he believed victory was certain, but because he knew he wouldn't face it alone. At dawn, the battle commenced. The Velari fleet emerged from the nebula, catching the Krylos off guard. Explosions lit up the void as ships clashed, weapons firing in dazzling bursts of energy. Ethan fought alongside Saraphina, their movements synchronized as they carved a path toward the enemy flagship. The air crackled with tension, each second stretching impossibly long. As they breached the Krylos vessel, Ethan caught sight of Malachar, a towering figure clad in black armor, his eyes burning with malevolent intent. The rogue leader sneered as he raised his weapon, addressing Saraphina directly. So, the queen brings her pet to die with her, Malachar taunted, his voice dripping with contempt. How fitting. Ethan stepped forward, his rifle aimed squarely at Malachar. Try me, he growled, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. Malachar laughed, a cold, cruel sound. Very well, human. Let's see if you're worth the trouble. The duel that followed was brutal and unrelenting. Ethan dodged plasma blasts and retaliated with precise shots, his training paying off in spades. Saraphina fought beside him, her blade flashing as she engaged Malachar's guards. Together, they pushed forward, inch by agonizing inch. But Malachar was no ordinary foe. With a roar, he unleashed a devastating wave of energy that sent both Ethan and Saraphina sprawling. Pain exploded in Ethan's side as he hit the ground, his vision swimming. Through the haze, he saw Saraphina struggling to rise, blood trickling from a gash on her forehead. No, he shouted, forcing himself to his feet despite the agony. Summoning every ounce of strength, he charged at Malachar, tackling him to the ground. The two grappled fiercely, locked in a desperate struggle for survival. In the chaos, Saraphina seized the opportunity. With a cry, she plunged her blade into Malachar's chest, ending the battle in a burst of light. The Krylo's leader collapsed, his body dissolving into ash. Breathing heavily, Ethan turned to Saraphina, relief washing over him. "We did it," he whispered, his voice hoarse. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, we did." But even as triumph settled in, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that this victory came at a price. One they had yet to fully understand. While that's a lovely and heartwarming idea, it doesn't quite fit the tone or direction of the story so far. The tale has been building up with intense action, emotional depth, humor, and high-stakes drama against the backdrop of interstellar conflict. Jumping straight to marriage and kids might feel rushed and out of place given the complexity of Ethan and Saraphina's relationship, as well as the challenges they still face. Instead, let's continue weaving their journey in a way that honors the growth they've experienced, while leaving room for future developments, whether peaceful or otherwise. Here's how we can bridge toward something hopeful without skipping steps. The aftermath of Malachar's defeat was both triumphant and sobering. The Krylo's fleet retreated into disarray, its leader gone and its morale shattered. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, there was a glimmer of peace on the horizon. Yet, the cost of victory weighed heavily on everyone aboard the ship. Lives had been lost, bonds tested, and scars, both visible and invisible, etched deeply into those who survived. Ethan sat alone in the observation deck, staring out at the stars streaking past as the ship limped back toward Velari space. His body ached from the battle, but it was his mind that refused to rest. He replayed every moment, the chaos, the fear, the split-second decisions that could have ended very differently. And then there was Saraphina, the way she'd fought beside him, trusted him, saved him. She was more than just a queen. She was his partner in every sense of the word. A soft hum interrupted his thoughts. Turning, he saw Saraphina enter the chamber, her usual regal bearing tempered by weariness. Her silver-blue skin bore faint bruises, and her golden eyes seemed dimmer than usual, but she smiled when she saw him. "You should be resting," she said gently, taking a seat beside him. "So should you," he replied, returning the smile. "But I guess neither of us is great at following orders." She chuckled softly, the sound soothing after weeks of tension. They sat in companionable silence for a while, watching the cosmos stretch endlessly before them. Finally, Ethan broke the quiet. "What happens now?" he asked, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "I mean, the war is over, right? Or at least this part of it." "For now," Saraphina admitted. "The Krylos may regroup, but their power is fractured. We've bought ourselves time. Time to rebuild, to heal." She paused, glancing at him sidelong. "And perhaps, to dream of a different future." Her words hung in the air between them, heavy with unspoken meaning. Ethan swallowed hard, his pulse quickening. "What kind of future?" Saraphina turned to face him fully, her expression vulnerable yet resolute. "One where I don't have to choose between duty and desire. Where I can lead my people not as a distant ruler, but as someone who dares to love openly. Someone who chooses you, not because of obligation, but because my heart demands it." Ethan's breath caught in his throat. He hadn't expected such honesty, especially from someone who carried the weight of an entire empire on her shoulders. "You're serious?" he murmured, half questioning, half awestruck. "I've never been more certain of anything," she replied, reaching out to take his hand. "But I won't ask you to give up everything for me, Ethan. If you wish to return to Earth, I will understand. This life, my life is not easy. Comes with sacrifices, expectations, dangers. You deserve happiness, freedom. But if you stay..." Her voice trailed off, leaving the question unfinished. Ethan stared at her, his mind racing. Could he truly leave her behind after everything they'd been through? After all they'd shared? The thought of walking away filled him with a hollow ache he couldn't ignore. "I don't want to go back," he said finally, his voice firm despite the whirlwind of emotions inside him. "Not unless you're coming with me." But he hesitated, searching for the right words. "This isn't just about me anymore. Your people need you. They look up to you. And honestly, I'm starting to think maybe they need me too. Not as some outsider, but as part of this crazy, beautiful mess." Seraphina's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Then stay," she whispered. "Stay and help me build something new, something better, together." It wasn't a proposal in the traditional sense, nor did it come with grand declarations or elaborate ceremonies. But in that moment, surrounded by the infinite expanse of the universe, Ethan knew he had found his home. Not on Earth, not among the stars alone, but with her. In the months that followed, Ethan embraced his role alongside Saraphina. They worked tirelessly to mend the fractures within Velari society, proving that unity across species was possible. Ethan became a bridge between worlds, fostering understanding between humans and Velari, earning respect even from skeptics like Lord Xyler. Slowly but surely, the whispers of doubt faded, replaced by hope for a brighter future. As for Ethan and Saraphina, their bond deepened with each passing day. Their love wasn't perfect. It was messy, complicated, and often challenged by the demands of leadership, but it was real. And in time, their connection blossomed into something more tangible. A commitment celebrated not just by two individuals, but by two peoples. On the day of their union, the Velari capital shone brighter than ever before. Lights danced across crystalline spires, and music filled the air as beings from countless worlds gathered to witness the joining of a human soldier and an alien queen. It was a ceremony unlike any other, blending Earth's traditions with Velari rituals. When Ethan placed a simple ring on Seraphina's finger, a token crafted from stardust and steel, he felt a surge of gratitude for the improbable path that had led them here. Years later, laughter echoed through the halls of the royal palace as small feet pattered across polished floors. Children with glowing amber eyes and radiant smiles chased one another, their laughter infectious. Some bore traces of Ethan's humanity, others the shimmering hues of the Velari, but all were proof of a legacy born from love and courage. Yet, even in peace, the galaxy remained vast and unpredictable. New challenges arose, new alliances formed, and old enemies occasionally re-emerged. But Ethan and Seraphina faced them together, side by side, knowing they were stronger united than apart. Their story wasn't just about survival, it was about creating something enduring, something worth fighting for, something that reminded the universe that even in the darkest times, light could prevail. And so, under the watchful gaze of the stars, Ethan Drake and Queen Seraphina carved out a life neither had dared to imagine. A life filled with love, laughter, and the boundless possibilities of tomorrow.